I've been drinking that has had great results for over 20 years. It's called Life Change Tea, and it's specially formulated to help detoxify and cleanse your kidneys, liver, colon, and blood all at once. The colon is one of the most ignored organs in the human body. The faster that waste is eliminated from the body, the less time that waste sits in our intestines, spreading toxins to our bloodstream. This tea helps cleanse chemicals caused by outside intruders from our entire digestive system, and get this, weight loss can be a side effect. And with continued use of the tea, you can experience clearer, healthier, younger looking skin, increased energy, and a happier outlook on life. So if you're tired of being tired, get the Life Change Tea at getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. And like me, you'll be glad you did.
This is the Joe Mangiacotti Show. Our topics are large and small. When you really need to know, we are the show you want to know. It's time to talk to you.
All right, folks, good morning and welcome to the Sunday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show here on AM 830 WCRN and, of course, our affiliate station in the western part of the state, AM 730 WACE. We're live streaming on the TuneIn app, so just punch in WCRN and you can take us anywhere. If you don't have it, it takes seconds to download, no problem. Other 411 information, you can reach the show off air in our office number, which is 508-603. 9778 508-603-9778, or email the show at joemshow@gmail.com. To join the conversation during the show today, you can call into our line here at the station, 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. You can also text us on our text line. We do have a text line. Text it like you would your buddy to go get a beer, if you could do that legally in Massachusetts. 617-297-8388, 617-297-8388, or email us in real time at textjoeontheradio@gmail.com, and that will reach us. All right, we've got a great show or hour lined up here. I hope you enjoyed Faith in America, and we'll be here till 8 o'clock. And then Jerry Doherty is sitting in for Peter Bluth this morning from 9 until noon. I'll be back to join Jerry at 10 o'clock, and I think we'll be talking, actually, interestingly enough, about platforms, right, versus publications when we come to these social media companies, which has to be addressed, and something has to be done about that. Good morning, Cam.
Good morning.
I'm sorry, did I catch you chewing?
No, I've got a million things going on back here.
Going on. Everything okay?
Everything's dandy.
All right, fantastic. So 508-871-7000, again, to join the conversation. In studio with me this morning, actually, no stranger to the show, and, that's the problem? There you go. No stranger to the show. Stephen Hall is in studio. Good morning, Stephen.
Hey, good morning. Good to be here.
Yeah, we got to get the mic lined up, right? Try that again. Go ahead.
Good morning. Good to be here.
All right. We got a lot to talk about today, but the first thing I wanted to get into is Steve is actually a two-time author, and he's joining us this morning because you've actually published your second book. And the second book is a little different than the first. So
it's a lot different.
It's
right?
a lot different. First of all, let's remind people about 15 rules for loving, lasting, and what's the
satisfying relationship.
Oh, satisfying. Yeah. It's cursive on the thing. I did say. So for long, lasting, satisfying relationships. But this was you and Janet. This is a husband-wife combination.
My wife and I put that together, and I think it's certainly something really important. We looked at our life, and we looked at the fact that we had been through a lot in our 40 years of marriage, and including being a politician. And how on earth did we do it? We lost a daughter in a tragic automobile or motorcycle accident. We had business failures. We had the stresses of business, all those kind of things. And how on earth did we get through it? And so we sat down one day and wrote these down, and it really was a big hit. So it's really taken off, and we're hearing some really great things about this. So some good reviews, actually.
Really? 40 years. See, I got stuck on that. That's a long time, man. That's a long time. And you got, first of all, you guys don't even look like you could be married 40 years. So early, I mean, sweethearts, like high school type thing?
High school sweethearts.
Okay.
Yeah, we met in high school, and we've been together ever since. And you know, a lot of people always ask us, "What is your secret? What do you?" So we wrote it down, and it's amazing. We had one woman reach out to us. Actually, she was a blogger, and she said she was about ready to leave her husband. Read the book and realized that she was the problem. I felt bad for her, but admitting that. But she was going to work on it. So I haven't heard about how it's going, but there's so many of those stories out there now that we're hearing from the book. It's exciting. It's a short read. It's a short book, but it's 15 of the really important rules to a relationship.
Yeah, it's funny, and I won't show which one, but out of my multiple sisters, one of the interesting things that she said when it came to relationships was that they had decided to go to a therapist, my sister and brother-in-law, and my sister's expectation was totally that they would get there and the therapist would tell my brother-in-law just how wrong he was and how horrible he was and everything that he did wrong and how he should have to fix it. But the therapist didn't do that. And the therapist made my sister look back at herself and look at some of the issues there. She's like, wait a minute, that's not how this was supposed to happen, man, right? So that's great. Well, I mean, if it helps, it's kind of cliches, right? But if it helps one person, it was really kind of worth it.
It was definitely worth it. And we're hearing some really good things. It's available on Amazon. It's available on 15rules.com.
Okay.
You should grab your copy. It's a great read.
All right, I want to continue the conversation, but we do have a caller who wants to jump in, a regular caller actually to the show, and someone who really pays attention to what's going on. So let me pause for a moment and say, hey, good morning, Mark.
Yeah, good morning, Joe. I apologize for...
No, you're welcome. Anytime.
Well, anyway, I'll get brief. I'll make this brief. It's the federal prosecutor for the 7th District of New York. It looks like he's finally accepted the fact that he's been fired by A.G. Barr. Isn't that remarkable?
Yeah, apparently he just didn't understand this is going to happen, and A.G. Barr had to go to the president and say, you need to remove him. I don't know why everybody needs to challenge this president in the authority that comes with the office. It seems
well, you know the reason why.
I know it's a rhetorical question, but my point being, it's just that everything he does well. I mean, even if we look at the Monday, the decision this week regarding DACA, first of all, we all understand, and even President Obama said at the time he did it, I don't have the authority to do this. He did it anyway, and no one questioned it or challenged it. And it took 24 executive orders to make it happen. And all this administration wanted to do is say, well, it wasn't a legal thing in the first place. It should never happen. Let's undo it. And he has always said, send it to Congress. Congress, do your job. Fix the immigration problem. They won't deal with them. Remember, he said, I will give amnesty to everybody here. We'll fix DACA, but you got to fund the wall and secure our borders. Which, by the way, Mark, right? Doing immigration reform without securing the border is just ridiculous. They have to go hand in hand. We have to have secure border with streamlining immigration service so that we have 38 points of entry to the country. Use any one of those and legally enter the country. If you are being persecuted somewhere and you need asylum, we have systems in place for that. In other words, we already have systems in place for any conceivable way that you need to come to this country legally. Use any one of them. We got to secure the border, streamline the immigration process, and do it all at once. You can't do it piece by piece because they have to work hand in hand. Steve, I know you want to jump in on this.
Yeah, the thing is, what we're seeing with our president is we've got a leader in place. We elected this leader in place. We've got to trust him sometimes, and we're always second guessing him, or the media's second guessing him. And he knows what he's doing. I'm convinced he knows what he's doing. It's pretty amazing what he's doing here. He's really turned the country around. We've got some more work to do, but we've got to trust in the process. Every 4 years we make another decision, but we've got to trust the guy and trust in the process.
And when we do that every 4 years, when we decide to put somebody in there, let them do their job. This guy has been fought every inch of the way for 4. Not only, I mean, now it's very clear. I know that when we were saying this when it was first happening, we were called conspiracy theorists, etc. Now we know for a fact that there was actually a slow motion coup in effort, that they tried to derail his candidacy, his presidency, and they've done it at every turn. So when we do put that person in there for 4 years, let them do their job without interference. Now, the normal interference, the normal give and take of Republican, Democrat.
Can I say something about Justice Roberts?
Yes, absolutely, and sure you wanted to.
Justice Roberts, okay? I wish he would realize that he works for the American people. He does not work for legal or illegal foreign national aliens. I wish he would become more concerned about the welfare and the health of the American people rather than people who are in this country illegally or legally, whether they're here on a green card or whether they're here illegally. He doesn't seem to get the picture, but I see that Mr. Berman finally get the message, and I wish Chief Justice Roberts, he tipped the scales on that 5-4. He's the GOAT.
Yeah.
I wish he would get that into his thick skull. Have a good one, fellas.
All right, Mark. Thank you very much.
Take care, Mark.
Yeah, very true. The thing about it, and this is one thing I think the President Trump has kind of made clear over and over, that he wants justices who believe in the Constitution, not activist judges, people who are going to do what that position is. The Founding Fathers were very much, they were brilliant in this time and space that came together. Think about it, that we created this government, and it was because of them looking at the tyranny of monarchies, the tyranny of military governments, all of it, and said, we have got to create a government for the people, by the people, with checks and balances. And they did it. The
Constitution's an amazing document. It absolutely is an amazing document, and we're getting away from that. I think that's the problem. Whether it's here in Massachusetts or whether in the country, we think it's a document that can be changed. It shouldn't be. It's the law of the land.
Yeah, and there were also several cases that were brought before that the court isn't going to. That they decided not to hear about the Second Amendment. And I think, and I believe the president when he says that they're coming after the Second Amendment. I mean, we hear all the time about certain things. It's settled law. Well, the Second Amendment is about as settled law as you can get. And yet the left is constantly attacking it. And it was put in there for a reason. They understood that it was necessary that citizenry had that protection and had that ability and the right to keep and bear arms because of overstepping governments. And it was just something that was necessary. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Don, good morning, sir.
Yes, good morning, Joe. I'm calling in a little blind. My streaming's not getting here in Stoughton.
Okay. We'll have Cam take a look at that.
Okay, yeah, have them kick the computer or some darn thing. But you were talking about the situation with the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Turned down Trump and said that Trump acted illegally trying to undo the illegal act of Obama creating DACA.
Administrative procedures weren't followed. I mean, that goes back to Jeff Sessions, by the way. He's the guy who was actually put in charge of doing that. And he didn't do it. And this was things like not checking the right boxes and not putting 3 days notice on it, and things that were administrative, very administrative, not touching or changing the content or the context of the executive orders, i.e. the law that comes from it, but it was the procedure of it, which is so ridiculous, because should the court really have been dealing with that aspect of it? The question was, and the question is at principle, can the sitting president of the United States undo and reverse executive orders from the previous guy that were illegal to begin with? And the answer is yes, actually, it is.
Yeah,
and they said it
is. Even Congress can undo laws that were passed earlier.
So
yes,
that's not the question. And that's why the president said we're going to refile it, because it's not a matter of refiling what it is that we want to do. It's just doing the paperwork the right way.
Well, here's the big kicker, Joe. A lot of people have a problem with the 16th Amendment, the income tax. And what the court has stated previously, and what they said is, even though the states voted on the 16th Amendment that was printed incorrectly, in other words, the states voted on things on a bill that wasn't printed properly, that did not convey the actual 16th Amendment, because they followed the proper procedure, that means then that the 16th Amendment was approved by the states, even though many states voted on things that didn't convey the actual 16th Amendment. Put that in your mind for a second and compare that to the president undoing an unlawful act. In the eyes of the law, Joe, an unlawful act has no standing. It
exactly. That is very true.
The states cannot enforce something that does not exist in the eyes of the Constitution.
And they do it. And I've always thought it. Well, I've been, even before the president did that, my question was always, how come those executive orders weren't challenged? I mean, every executive order this president does gets challenged in court, right? They go, where do they go?
Yes, exactly.
They go to the same court all the time because it's heavy with liberal activist judges. So why wasn't this just said, hey, by the way, this really is unconstitutional? It was a violation when he did it. And I think there's a last count that I know of, there were 9 times on film Barack Obama says, I don't have the power to do this. I can't do this, but I'm doing it anyway. Yeah. And that was pretty much, I'm going to do it anyway, and to go ahead and stop it. But nobody did. Right?
No, that was
hundreds
one of the
members of Congress
rulings.
Let it go, and the entire Republican Party let it go, and for that matter, we the citizens let it go.
Yeah, and I remember Justice Roberts when he approved Obamacare tax. I'm shouting at the television.
Yeah,
well, Mr. Justice,
that was a back bend over. Yeah.
Is that a direct tax or is that an indirect tax?
Yeah.
And nobody gave me an answer.
Yeah. TV won't talk back to you, huh?
Yeah. And now one last thing. Remember last week we were talking about the Black Book of Communism and how communism could not afford to take care of as many people as they did under the Tsar. So Stalin ordered that 30% of every city and town be killed off. Mm-hmm. Do you know how they stopped that, Joe?
No.
Entire cities and towns showed up at the KGB office demanding to be killed.
Interesting.
Because the citizens realized it was better to be dead than living under communism. And Stalin said, oops, I made a mistake here.
Yeah.
That's how they stopped it. Everybody showed up demanding to be killed.
Wow.
Yeah.
That says something, yeah. All right, Don.
Okay.
Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Enjoy.
All right. Bye now. All right, folks. Thank you for the call. It's fantastic. Regular callers to the show, Steve. Always bring good stuff to the table. 508-871-7000. Lines are open and available. In studio with me is Stephen Hall, and he is a 2-time author and actually a politician candidate. You're currently seeking a state Senate seat.
Running again for the state Senate seat in the Worcester, Hamden, Hampshire, and Middlesex district. I can't name, I can name all 28 towns, but you don't want me to.
Yeah.
It would take a while.
Yeah.
But back out doing it again because I just don't like seeing what's happening.
Right.
The left, the liberal Democrats are going so far left. What we talked about 2 years ago is now nothing compared to what they're working on now with the defunding the police and.
Well, okay, but we're also. I mean, we have. Here we go, and we'll get into this. You're running for state senate, and here in Massachusetts, we've got this shutdown, which many would argue has been overzealous and a little bit too much. We're losing revenue hand over fist. Just Keno revenue alone is at $30 million a week. Mails taxes and sales taxes, and of course, a huge decrease in gas taxes because nobody's going to work or driving around or going out to dinner. So we're going to have this massive shortfall. Fortunately, we had a pretty good rainy day fund. Senator Moore, who's in on the first Saturday of every month, folks said, there was the good amount of money in that rainy day fund. Of course, that's gone. They're putting, people are on unemployment, and it's interesting how the government's now saying, boy, those companies, you got to pay that on unemployment. but they're not unemployed because of the company's fault, right? So there's a problem there. The stress that they're putting on the small businessman, all businesses right now, is ridiculous. The opening is very slow. We're going to have shortfalls. They've already said we have a 5 cents gas tax coming. They always go to the gas tax, Steve. Always go to the gas tax. I've said this for I don't know how many years on the air. I've said this. The gas tax is the most oppressive tax to the middle class and lower middle class that there is. If you're upper class, you have a really good income, you can absorb that $20, $30, $40 a week. If you are on social welfare programs and urban living and you don't drive, it really doesn't affect you. But the guy who has to drive 20 or 30 miles each way to work every day, he's on that tight budget, that gas tax is the difference between the family having cable and not. It's the difference between the family taking a vacation that summer or not. It's the difference between a lot of things. And it's just that they go to the gas tax all the time. And I think it's so unfair in the big picture of things. That aside, what is the solution to this? We've got, first of all, have we opened too slow, in your opinion?
We have absolutely opened too slow. I mean, we take. First of all, I want to say that all the folks who lost somebody to this COVID, what a shame. How awful a thing that occurred. But we've got to get back. We're Americans. We're strong Americans. We're tough patriots here in Massachusetts. We've got to get back to work. We can't continue to destroy these businesses. They were just reporting that they think 25% of the restaurants are going to be unable to reopen because we've destroyed them. What about the other businesses?
Yeah.
We can't. Government is putting. I hate to say it, but they're knee on the necks of business on the people. There are people out there who've fallen through the cracks who are literally starving. They need to get back to work, and we've got to step aside, understand that there's going to be some consequences. But the reality is that it's folks who already have a precondition. Janet, my wife, and I are both in healthcare. It's a precondition. The numbers, I think, are skewed. We've got to get back to work and got to get back to work now.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, I think the numbers on that, because I had done a little research for the Out with Joe segment, and they were talking nationwide about 30% of restaurants. That's a significant number of restaurants, and the ripple effect of how many people those employ, and think of all the businesses that are connected to a restaurant business that it's going to affect. So the ripple effect will be 7 generations thick into there anyway. So it is tough. I mean, starting by the way, happy Father's Day. Before
Thank
I forget, and happy Father's Day to everybody. Here we have step 2 of phase 2 kicks in tomorrow, which means you can eat inside a restaurant at, I think, 50%. And even this, I say, why couldn't you do that today? Is the 24 hours from today, tomorrow going to make a big difference to the virus? Does it understand that? I mean, why not open for Father's Day? And then the other part of this is we didn't know a lot about it when it was first on the scene. I get that. We do know a lot more about it right now. And I think to tell businesses continually to micromanage, first of all, anybody that's concerned, and if you're, over 80, of course, but I would say even if you're over 60, you should be very concerned. So you have the right to control how much you go out, put a mask on, put on protection, keep your social distancing. But even in the businesses, every business I've come into, have gone into during this whole thing, have absolutely immediately adjusted. The one thing about the American entrepreneur, the American business person, is we adapt, we overcome, we will figure it out. We will always figure it out. And you go into stores now, and there's they've got sanitizer at the doorway. They're wiping things down all the time. People understand. Nobody's shaking hands. Nobody's hugging anymore. We're just automatically keeping a good distance away from each other. But we do have to take a break. In studio with me is Stephen Hall and Janet Hall. We're going to talk a little bit about your new book, that Doug Danger. We haven't really got into it, so let's get into it a little bit on the other side. We're going to take a pause for Case Files from the LPDAM here on AM 830 WCRN, the Joe Mangiacardi Show. Stick with us. Good morning and welcome to Case Files from the LPDAM, where we take a look at actual cases, the law, and lessons from the findings, and where we share the experiences of the experts of the Private Detectives Association of Massachusetts. I'm Joe Mangiacotti, and joining me this week is Sean Burke, who is president of the LPDAM and also resident manager of Courtside Legal Investigation. Good morning, Sean.
Good morning, Joe.
Well, let's move on here as we continue with our weekly case files. I wanted to ask you specifically the winning of cases. And is there a common denominator that you find, a common thread that runs through cases that seem to be victorious?
Joe, I get asked this question a few times a month. There are two common denominators, in my opinion: investment and preparation. How does somebody invest in their case? The investment occurs by hiring the right people to gather supporting factual data to be used at a trial. Seems simple, but nothing could be further from the truth, Joe. Hiring well is an art, and finding the people who can do what they say is hard and easily misjudged. This is why a resource like lpdam.org is so valuable. We have over 50% of all working Massachusetts licensed private investigators as members. This is a great tactical advantage when doing your own vetting of who to hire. If it's not an LPDM member business, you may have already made your first mistake. LPDM has a strict protocol on who is allowed membership. The business must be licensed. They must be experienced. The business is invested in the industry. And to be an LPDM member business, they must care about their client. To hire an LPDM member business, you are assured that what is being offered is possible. The second denominator that seems to often be associated with success in the courtroom is preparation. Trial preparation starts on day one, not 2 days before the trial. Being involved with legal support for the past 30 years, I unfortunately have seen good cases that take a terrible turn for the worse when a lawyer, an investigator, or other legal support style businesses fail to prepare until the last minute. Trials with good outcomes just don't work like that. The best prepared have an advantage and can sway a judgment in their favor when they're prepared properly. Joe, I always say to clients, you only have so much money and you want to spend it right. Either way, you're going to spend it. So by doing it right, you give yourself the best chance to get the best outcome. A mistake in either the hiring stage or the trial preparation can result in a poor outcome. It's typically the same cost either way.
Well, Sean, that is really helpful information, but I would like to revisit the whole why hire LPDAM members opposed to just any private investigator.
Well, Joe, LPDM is a nonprofit association and the voice of the Massachusetts private investigative industry. We work on legislative issues, provide amicus briefs to the Supreme Judicial Court, educate our membership on proper investigative techniques, as well as business development. LPDM member businesses are invested in the industry and their business matters to them. They can produce the services they offer. Joe, since I've been president of LPDM, I have become aware of many businesses not affiliated with LPDM marketing such services that are questionable, to say the least. The goal of LPDM is to educate the public that a license is required to provide third-party investigations in Massachusetts, and only a licensed business within the Commonwealth of Massachusetts can provide such services. This is why LPDM is so important. We vetted these businesses, and only slightly higher than 50% of all the working private investigative businesses in Massachusetts qualified to be LPDM members. This says a lot about the high standards expected of LPDM member businesses. This is a major reason for creating lpdm.org and the investigator tab concept for the public to know who can provide investigative service and who can produce quality services. Remember, Joe, you're in good hands with LPDM. We look forward to working with you.
Well, it certainly sounds like you are in good hands. Well, Sean, thanks for coming by. Case Files again.
Thank you, Joe.
And thank you for joining us for Case Files from the LPDAM. Join us here each week on WCRN 830 AM and online anytime at lpdamcasefiles.com. Visit us at lpdam.org, and you can find LPDAM on Facebook and Twitter at PINMass and anytime at 800-955-6274. For Sean Burke, I'm Joe Mangiacotti. Do you have an uphill battle, a court case, or pending litigation? Are you facing criminal charges? Clandestine Investigation Service can help. CIS & Associates is a full-service private investigation agency with expertise in fidelity and premarital investigation, teen investigations, GPS, insurance and workers' comp, elder abuse, mystery shopping, and bar spotting, as well as process serving. We are a second-generation private investigation agency with all of the expertise and technology to handle any investigation or situation you may have. We've been offering personal close quarters protection for 3 decades. CIS is also CPCS approved. If you have a public defender, you can also have a defense investigator from the same state committee providing your legal representation. Put the power of our investigation to work for you. Call now for a confidential, no-obligation discussion of your situation. Click newenglandinvestigator.net. That's newenglandinvestigator.net. neinvestigator.net. Don't let happenstance control your destiny. Put the power of our investigation to work for you. Call now 508-296-5445. That's 508-296-5445. Or click newenglandinvestigators.net. That's neinvestigator.net. PCInvestigators.net.
This is the Joe Mangiacotti Show. We are the show you want to know. It's time to talk to you.
All right, folks, welcome back here to the Joe Mangiacotti Show and Sunday edition. Don't forget that coming up today at 9 o'clock is Peter Balut Show, but Jerry Doherty will be sitting in for Peter today on Father's Day. I'll join Jerry at 10 o'clock for a little bit, so be sure to keep us tuned right here to AM 830 WCRN and, of course, AM 730 WACE. In studio with me is Stephen Hall, and he is a two-time author. And the first book really had to do with relationships based on your 40 years of marriage. And should I ask, I mean, was it a success? It got around and people loved it?
It's got around. People love it. It's
Yeah.
available on Amazon or pretty much any major bookseller.
Okay. Now, this latest book, right, is Doug Danger, Dare to Dream. So a little bit of a shift. But first, give me the background about who Doug Danger is and who he is to you, because you have a connection with the guy.
I do. Doug Danger is actually a local hero. Grew up in Palmer, Massachusetts for most of his life. Moved to Wales, Massachusetts. And him and his wife, now moved to Florida. But he is someone who was a daredevil, or is a daredevil, for over 40 years of performing with some of the greatest. He knew Evel Knievel. He worked with Evel Knievel, Robbie Knievel, all the greatest. And he's also my cousin. And so after writing the first book, I said, "Hey, Doug, let me write your memoir." He'd been trying for years, trying to find somebody, and me knowing his business, knowing motorcycle riding, those kind of things,
Yeah.
but also being already an experienced author.
Well, that would be the other
Yeah,
part of writing
yeah.
a book, is negotiating the whole publisher and publication process. right?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So we put it together. But what I wanted to do, much like the first book, was what are the lessons he learned in his 40 years, and what can he teach us? Because 40 years in a business, 40 years of performing like that, 40 years of survival, and he's got an amazing story of survival of stage 4 cancer, of being in a coma for 29 days where he wasn't going to make it, but yet he struggled back and went back out performing again. And it's an amazing, inspirational story. I've had people already tell me that they've laughed, they've cried, and you've got to read it. It's an amazing story. I've had somebody say it was one of the top 5 books he's ever read.
Wow. Well, I got to tell you, so folks, Doug Danger. Now, this guy, if you don't know him, I mean, he was in Guinness Book of World Records, wasn't he?
9 years Guinness Book of World Record, held a world record way back in 1991 through 2000. Yeah.
And, there's been movies that have kind of modeled characters after real guys like this, like after the Evel Knievels and the Doug Dangers of the world, right? They use some fictional character sometimes, but they're based on these guys.
They are, yeah. Matter of
jumping-
fact, Doug was I remember he was real excited, that movie Hot Rod, which was a takeoff of the whole motorcycle jumping thing. He was so excited to see his poster in the background of
that
Hot
he
Rod.
made.
I remember he's all excited.
He
He's like,
made it in
big
the
time.
movie. Yeah. What is he best known for as far as the stunt? Jumping cars or buses, that kind of thing. What's his
Motorcycle.
best?
Certainly his most, beyond the 42 cars lined up side by side in 1991, held a world record for 9 years. He's jumped over a jumbo jet, an L1011, and more recently, 2015, 2017, he jumped Evel Knievel's actual 1972 Harley Davidson that Evel Knievel jumped back in the day. I believe it was a Kings Island jump, the 14 bus jump, and he jumped it over 22 cars, and then over a pit of rattlesnakes later on in Sturgis, South Dakota, where I was at both. And that's a 43-year-old motorcycle that he was able to do that on. And what's even more amazing is the owner of that, he paid $350,000 for that motorcycle at auction and let him jump it, which is really amazing.
Which was putting $350,000, up into the air, right?
Yes,
Throwing
yes.
it in the air and hoping it came down in one piece, right? He's got to have had some wipeouts, right? I mean, he's got to have. You said he was in coma. Was that because of an accident or because of the illness?
It was because of an accident. He was
Okay.
actually in an accident up in Hudson, New Hampshire, on a routine jump. He made an error and hit a cement wall in the first turn of the racetrack, head on into it. And I remember his mother, my aunt, said, "Don't bother going to see him. He's not going to make it. Just remember how he was."
Right.
And yet, here he's back out doing it again. And
Wow.
that was in 1992. He did that.
Wow. So, what are some of the lessons that you think people are going to pull from his life story? I mean, I'm sure the mechanics of the jumps and the thrill of the jumps and how that works is wonderful, but you got to have some life lessons in a life like this that you want to pull from.
There are many in there, but and that's what we explored when we did his book. Is first of all, one question that came to mind is why do so many people follow him? Like we went to, my wife and I rode out to Sturgis on our motorcycle, Sturgis, South Dakota, and yet there were all these stuntmen that came out there to help him out on their own dime. And what is it that brings him out there? And it was really his leadership style. So we analyzed his leadership style, talked about it, and talked about the difference between a manager and a leader. And I think that you read that, you can translate in that to your work, whatever, if you're a leader at your own work or what you do or your church, or you can translate it in there. The other lessons are really about never giving up, always daring to dream. And I think that's really what's really the message that comes across there, that somebody from perhaps the wrong side of the tracks, like Doug and me, came up on. We were poor. We weren't born in L.A. or something of that sort. Yet he was able to make something of himself because of just sheer determination and not listening to people telling him that it couldn't be done.
Yeah.
And many of the stunts he did, they were considered impossible. The Sturgis jump with Evil's bike, he had other daredevils.
Yeah.
Texting him saying, you're going to die, but yet he did it anyways because he knew what he was doing.
Wow. When your colleagues say, "Hey, that's a little crazy. Don't do that," it's got to make him pause, though.
He certainly was a little shooken when that happened.
Yeah. That's crazy. So it's easy to go to DougDanger.net. Is that the best way to order the book or to check it out? What do you?
DougDanger.net or 15rules.com.
Okay, and you can buy it through those links anytime.
Sure,
Is this
or on Amazon.
Okay,
Yeah, on Amazon, yeah.
Got it. And if anybody wanted to reach out to you, they can just get you at the 15rules.com address.
Yeah,
So,
and you can
okay.
reach out to us there.
That's a s.hall@15rules.com. We'll put that onto the Facebook page, and I'll tweet it out since Facebook has a problem with the show. We'll do that as well. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. 508-871-7000. Again, in studio, Stephen Hall, who is a two-time author, and his latest book is Doug Danger, Dare to Dream, From the Tragedy to Triumph, A Daredevil's Ride. So that's good. So are there pictures of the jumps in this? I didn't ask you this before we went on the air, so I don't know the answer to it.
There are, and
Okay.
it just came out, so I would have brought you a copy, but
Yeah,
I don't
no,
even
that's
have
fine.
the copies in
Okay.
yet. But there's
Okay.
pictures in there.
All right, because people love to see that stuff, And when you go, I didn't go to the daredevil.net address there. You're going to have some stuff there. I can go to it now, but
Yeah,
some
that
pictures on there.
website's still in production, but
okay.
yeah.
Cool. Now, where do you come into? I know you're a motorcycle rider. I mean, have you gone to this kind of stuff? I mean, have you ever done this, Steve? We've never talked about this. Have you ever done jumps? Do you put on a red, white, and blue pantsuit? I mean, how far do you get into this?
Way back in the day, I dabbled with it with Doug, and then got into motorcycle racing after that. But I've done some of the stunts with Doug and with the groups. The Joey Chitwood Thrill Show would be some of the folks might remember from the Big E over in West Springfield, and those folks that Doug, some of those folks afterwards worked with Doug, and Doug, of course,